What's up, guys? This is the top 5 Pro Paintball NXL roster changes. So originally I set out to do this video, I wanted to cover all the teams, but some of these teams didn't even have any changes, right? Like they stayed with the exact same roster. So we're gonna go with the top 5, or at least the top 5 that'll probably be the most impactful. So we're going to kick this off with the Los Angeles Ironmen. So the Ironmen really kind of for the past 4 to 5 years have not been really good. I think 2015 was the last year that they had a few higher place finishes, but you really have to go back into the 2009 season until you can actually find a win for the Ironmen. This last few years they've kind of tried to rebuild. They brought in Kyle Spicka from San Diego Dynasty, and then also Trevor Resar from Infamous. But those 2 years, both of those guys really didn't shine. Kyle didn't play so well, neither did Trevor. So this year they let him go, and they're bringing in Alex Rodriguez, Nick Slowiak, and Carlos Cortes. Alex Rodriguez is like superstar paintball player. I think Alex Rodriguez is one of the best players to ever play this game. He is extremely natural and just seems to go out and shoot 3 guys every single point. So he's very fun to watch, and I think will much help the Ironmen. And they also bought in Carlos Cortes, Carlos or Silos Cortes. He's a newer player. Some of you guys might not know him. He spent a couple years with Tampa Bay Damage, and there were a few matches or points that he really shined with Damage. And I hope that coming over to the Ironmen with some more guidance from Coach Todd Martinez can kind of help guide Carlos a little bit better and make him the killer that I think he can probably be. And they also brought Nick Slowiak. So Nick is a long-time pro player. He's been in this pro tournament series league thing for a very long time. Last year played with San Antonio X Factor. Didn't really play all that much with X Factor though. Didn't play a lot of points, but it's really difficult on some of these very high tier pro teams like X Factor to actually play. They just have so many good players, it's hard for him to find time to play. Or it's hard for him to get points, at least we'll say. Nick's a good player, I just think it was difficult for him to get points on X Factor. I think for sure his best season that I saw him play paintball was probably 2016, the last year he spent with 187 crew. I think with 187 he was given more of a role on that team. They're like, Nick, we need you to do this a lot in every single point. And he was able to fill that, maybe took on that extra responsibility and just played really well. So maybe they're gonna give him some more responsibility over on the Ironmen, and he's able to shine. But I think adding these 3 players in A-Rod for sure and Carlos Cortes will probably make the Ironmen better. Mainly because Kyle Spicka and Trevor Resar just had not been playing up to their potential the last couple years. So the Ironmen made some moves, and they might help. Infamous is also a team that I feel are constantly trying to get better, right? They're constantly trading out guys and rotating their roster around, just trying to break into that top tier of pro teams. They've been stuck in that middle group for 4 or 5 years now. And this year they did lose a long-time Infamous player, Drew Templeton. Drew had been on the team for, I should have probably looked this up, but a decade or something. He'd been with Infamous for a long time. But they did add 3 guys. They added Frye, formerly of Seattle Thunder, Greg Siewers. Greg's been on a lot of paintball teams. And then Mike Waring most recently played for AC Dallas. I think these 3 additions should really help Infamous. Infamous is full of a bunch of old guys. They don't really have any really aggressive attackers. So I think adding those 3 guys who are all front aggressive attackers should help their roster. Mike Waring is a very fast player, predominantly playing on that snake side. And I think that also having more guidance from experienced players like Kevin Rudolph or Coach Travis Lemansky could definitely help Mike Waring. And also for Frye. Frye primarily is playing over on that Dorito side, and I think could also benefit from more experienced players. Harrison has shown some extremely good matches, and I think is a great pickup for Infamous. But then we also have Greg. I can't forget Greg. I mean, Greg Siewers is the most professional paintball player on the planet. Well, maybe not the most professional, but he's one of the most professional players. He's just constantly putting in work, always working out, keeping his physique in shape. Yeah, that's what you'd say there. As well as doing drills all the time. He's constantly at the paintball field, working on snap shooting drills, and just trying to get better at paintball. Greg's the guy on a basketball team who just everyone loves because they work so hard. They're a hustler, they're diving for loose balls, they're getting lots of rebounds, playing defense. I don't know, Greg just reminds me of that guy. So Infamous losing Drew is probably a hit to their roster, but I think adding those 3 very good players, guys with lots of upside, has probably helped Infamous's roster. I mean, at some point, some of these guys are going to retire, right? Like Yosh is almost 40, Ryan's almost 40, Alex is almost 40 years old. I mean, like dudes are getting old. So I feel like this year they kind of like brought in Mike Urena to try to add some youth to that team. Mike Urena played for Sacramento DMG last year, is a very aggressive, athletic, good front snake player for Sacramento DMG, and I think could help Dynasty. Dynasty does have Arturo over on that snake side, but Arturo last year and these previous years just has not really gotten it done. He's not as aggressive as Dynasty needs. So I think maybe having Mike Urena over on that snake side being the first attacker, and then maybe having Arturo play behind him might work a little bit better for Dynasty. And they also brought in Scott Kemp. Scott Kemp is a long-time pro player. He's played for Aftermath, the Ironmen, X Factor. He's been on a lot of pro teams, has a lot of experience, and is good friends with the Dynasty guys, so I'm assuming he should fit in well with those guys. But they did lose Alex Rodriguez. A-Rod I talked about in that Ironman segment. He's very, very good. And for sure, Mike Urena and Scott Kemp do not fill the void that A-Rod is going to leave. But Dynasty, with all those very experienced players, like I said, with Yosh and Alex and Ryan all being like 50 years old, all that experience, I don't know if it matters because they still have a very good roster. So Dynasty, some shakeups to that roster, losing A-Rod, but they're still good. You know, they still got Marcelo and Yosh and Ryan and adding Mike Urena and adding Scott Kemp to that roster. They should be pretty good again. So I already said how like Ironman and like Infamous are like flipping their roster around all the time to like just get a little bit better. But I feel like Impact are doing that too constantly. And this year they let 3 people go. So Greg Siewers is no longer with Impact. He went over to Infamous. Tim Russellback went to Uprising, and Alex Rosati went back to New York Extreme. And then they picked up Trevor Resar, Kyle Spicka, and Josh Omelette. Amet is also coming back to the team. But I don't know if it matters. Like, Impact's the best team, right? They could lose like half their roster and still be really good. Like, the worst starting 5 lineup for Impact is like Nick Laval, I guess Zane Yakimek, Josh Amet, Justin Cornell, and Trevor Resar, but that's still crazy, right? Like, that's still a very, very good starting lineup. Like, that's the top 4 team right there. No, it's kind of crazy, but Impact adding Spicka and Resar are probably going to be better than Greg Siewers, Tim Russellback, and Alex Rosati. Greg played a lot, Greg got some points in, but we very, very seldomly saw Russellback or Rosati. But it makes sense, right? I mean, how are you going to give points to Tim Russellback over, like, you know, J-Rab and Alex Goldman? It's just not going to happen. But who knows, we might see that same thing, right? I don't know if I would be playing Kyle Spicka over Alex Goldman and J-Rab. So I don't know, we might even see Kyle Spicka not play much. And then the same thing could happen over on that Dorito side with Trevor Resar. Like, I don't know if I'm playing Justin Cornell and like Brandon Cornell over Trevor Resar, like, or the other way around. I should say, I don't know if I'm playing Trevor Resar over Brandon Cornell and Justin Cornell. Those guys are just good. So their roster is so stacked that I don't even know if those 2 better players are even going to play. Who knows? Impact's super good. They've made some roster changes and they're still super good. So it's been a while since Damage have been good. I mean, 2013 was the last time they won a tournament. But they have a very good roster. I mean, they have both the Edwards brothers in Jacob and Jason Edwards, Tim Montresor, Keith Brown is playing out of his mind this last year on the Snake side, and now they've added Brad McCurley to pick up the slack on the Dorito side. I shouldn't say that, that makes it sound bad. They still have Chad Boucher over there. Chad is a very good Dorito side player, but the last couple years hasn't really shined, where Brad McCurley has with AC Dallas. Brad has definitely helped AC Dallas win matches and has done very well with them. So hopefully he can bring that energy and that like killerness over to Damage on that Dorito side, because having him like smash down the Dorito side and then Keith Brown killing it with Brian Smith over on the Snake side, I think is a very potent combination and definitely could put Damage into like top 5 category. Let's hope so. They made this top 5 list. I mean, so tomorrow, the NXL Las Vegas webcast starts over at GoSports.com. Maybe you can check out the Ironmen. Maybe their roster is working out and they're doing a little bit better this year. And then maybe Damage and Brad McCurley are smoking guys on the Dorito side. If you don't think so, if you think I'm crazy and there's another roster move that was probably a bigger deal, leave a comment below and let me know.